Today's guest is Noam Sagi, a remarkable individual whose life journey embodies transformation and healing. From growing up in Israel in a kibbutz on the Gaza border in the 1970s to becoming a pioneering force in wellness technology, Noam brings a unique perspective on health, peace and human potential. As a psychotherapist and co-founder of V2V, he's combining his therapist's mindset with cutting-edge technology to revolutionise how we approach well-being. Located in London, V2V involves a 3-stage circuit called Breathe, Squeeze and Freeze, and it's having a hugely positive impact on its users' mental and physical well-being. Noam's story spans continents, cultures and life-changing experiences, all anchored in his deeply held belief that everyone has the power to live better and healthier lives. This is a fascinating conversation about personal growth, holistic health, at the intersection of mind and body wellness with someone who's dedicated his life to helping others reach their full potential. Now, over to Noam. Noam, welcome to the Impossible Network.
Thank you for inviting me, Mark.
Wonderful for you to join. Where are you at the moment?
I'm in central London, UK.
Lovely. Late in the day, early in mine. So let's start with the first big question. Noam, who are you as a human being?
Well, I think you started with the biggest question of all. It really is a big question. Or reflecting on that, I think that the best way for me to answer is to credit my parents who gave me the name Noam, which is a biblical name. It's a Hebrew name, which really means pleasant. It means something really pleasant. Try to do something in a way that is actually nice and pleasant for everybody, which is more about how you are handling yourself and who you are in the world. And in a weird way, I think now, from my 54 years looking back, I think it was appropriate that they gave me that name, because no matter where I find myself, in whatever situations, the things I'm doing, the things I need to react, the things I'm proactive about, the things that I envisage, it's all about making this place a better place. Try to improve quality of life for individuals or for people in general. So there's something about the pleasantness, the way I interact with other humans and the world around me, that I wish for others as well. And I'm trying to invest as much as I can in doing so.
Interesting.
I think it's
I suppose that does lead to the second big question about who or what made you you. You sort of answered it by saying it was your parents giving you the name. At what age did you become conscious of your name and its meaning, and therefore was that a conscious effect on your behavior, or do you think it's just coincidental?
I think nothing is coincidental, but I didn't know anything about it. Not as a child and not as a teenager, that only late teens, I started to realize that this is what's going on. But actually, I think it's very much in my psychological DNA rather than my DNA. So it's not coincidence. I think it's maybe for them, it's energy more than anything else. And I grew up into the space and into the energy of being me. And it's a reflection of their beliefs and my personality.
So how do you answer that question? Who or what made you this pleasant individual striving to have the same impact on other people and to create a better planet?
So it's interesting because I grew up in a very different setup than most. Even though I credited my parents straight on, and they deserve so much for the second answer as well. I grew up in a group. I grew up with other kids. I was born in the 70s in a kibbutz in the Negev, in the desert in Israel, which is on the border with Gaza. And this is from the age of 6 weeks till the age of 18, I was actually part of a group with peers. This is where I grew up. I saw my parents for 2 hours a day. So I guess the answer for that is very much when you throw into a group setup and dynamic so early in your life. Everyone find their own way, and mine was very much about to be the harmonizer, to be the improver, to be the one that see everybody for who they are, and try to respect everyone for, without judgment, for who they are and the beauty of what difference about them. So in a weird way, there is so much of what shaped me. It was that group, the dynamic of the group, the notion that you are not just belong to a family, but you also have another family of, we were 16 kids my age. And of course, that has a huge effect. The second thing is the kibbutz, the system as a whole. It was all very much idealistic environment. It really believed in one rule, which is give as much as you can, take as much as you need. And from very early on, everybody did their best, and you do your part. And I think that really shapes my viewpoint of the universe through that prism. What is my role? What am I doing? What I can contribute and how. And that can be sometimes to see someone properly, to really see them and struggle and to be there for them. And sometimes work hard and sometimes play hard, but it doesn't matter. It's like you always part of that energy. So you're never in a standalone kind of vacuum. And that really shaped me.
You're the first person I've interviewed that grew up in a kibbutz. It's unusual to encounter that.
There's not many.
Being aware, obviously, of kibbutzes. It's funny. In Scotland, when I was in my teens, there was a time it must have been the sort of late 70s, early 80s. There was a thing you'd read in Scotland about, or UK, go and spend the summer in a kibbutz. I was like, oh yeah, I want to go and do that. I had this desire. Of course, I never did it. Funnily enough, I did end up in 1980 spending the summer in Jordan because I went to boarding school. My guy who was in the bed next to me in the dormitory was a Jordanian Palestinian who lived in Amman, and I spent the summer in Jordan, going to Petra and Aqaba, and seeing a very different side of life and experiencing Ramadan in the summertime there, which was a bit of a shock to the system for a Scottish guy. So yeah, it's the closest I got to the kibbutz. But I think we'll come back and probably talk about the geopolitical side of things later. But I'm interesting. I've got a question around we're going slightly off script here. That group dynamic, seeing your parents 2 hours a day and growing up in a group of other kids, just boys or mixed?
Mixed.
So mixed. And you've got that, you use this term, give as much as you can and take what you need, which is a fantastic, it's almost like a great guide for life, actually, in terms of a philosophy to live by. And we think about, when you talk about that experience, and I think about growing up with my friends, but when I observe around me and the people I know and the family and their kids and my sister's grandkids, you look at how children are growing up today, particularly here in the West, in America, in the UK, and to a certain extent, in certain places in Europe, often isolated, stuck in their rooms, locked away during COVID, not getting a group dynamic. Are you concerned about what the future might look like for kids growing up in this very different dynamic to the experience you had as a child?
I don't want to romanticize. We're all looking at how safe and beautiful and amazing that was when we were on our bikes and we were like disappearing for, however long. No one were looking for us. No one checked. It was all like super safe and open. And, actually it was in the 70s in the desert and we were barely having any clothes on, so even the sun safe thing at the time. I don't want to over romanticize it because I think there are advantages in every situation. I know parents are really worried these days about, how kids and how they live and how they grow. And I think it's because it's very different to their experience. And we want to, and we think what is healthy and what is not healthy. And we don't know a lot of that, the answers here. We just try to romanticize what was good for us and then how we can inflict that on them. The fact that there is a change, and it's happening, and we passed the communication. We actually in the post communication revolution, there is less connection, and people are not connected in the same way that we did. We had no phones, we had no screens, we were on bikes, and we were roaming around and playing most of the time outside. Um, I'm not particularly worried about where the world is going and kids, in the same way that I hear a lot of people that are panicking about what is happening to kids, because we have to face changes, and they're happening, and some of them are unhealthy and some of them are healthy. And it's our responsibility to flow and grow with change.
Interesting. Yeah, because we're obviously conscious, depending on what your media bias is, but you encounter people like Jonathan Haidt and with books like The Coddling of the American Mind, and that recent one he came out with, which was a critique of the impact on social media on children's mental health and well-being. And again, it's an example of us being pulled to the extremes in the content that we consume. So I think it's interesting that you say we flow and grow. I think, I see it clearly. There is a romantic notion to look back and remember a time of free play, of adventure and countryside, without screens, without phones. But at the same time, the world we live in today is very different. We're moving into a world of AI where we have to embrace screens. We have to live with technology. And maybe the preparation that kids are going through today is just a necessary conditioning to help them evolve and thrive and strive and thrive in a world that we're moving into. So maybe it's a philosophical way of thinking about it.
I, yeah, no, I agree. I also see a different trend, which is actually, we as generation, I say we, at the time, it was very clear that we need to master the system. We need to go into education system. We need to fit into a class. We need to do well in our exams. We need to get to a good school and to a good university, and that would lead to a good career. So in a weird way, we were a generation that follow a conveyor belt, where whatever that conveyor belt was, if it's law, medicine, whatever that is, that we were striving to do. And I think right now, the world that we're going to is very different from that conveyor belt, because it's no longer appealing. I think you see kids that grew up to us as parents, and we worked really hard to achieve a lot. And we gave them the lifestyle and the education and the holidays and everything they wanted. But for them, that they took that as a benchmark, for granted. It's just normal. And what we didn't give them and what they are actually striving for is time, it's attention.
Yeah.
So in a weird way, they're not running into the same corporation and careers as we are. It's very different environment. And I think there is something to say about the movement from being part of a system to being as unique as you are, and the part of technology and all that helps them, even if it's just a platform, to express themselves as unique as they are and find their way in the world.
Yeah, very interesting. So at that time, let's just jump back into life in a kibbutz in the 1970s.
Yeah.
As you were spending time freely playing in the desert, in the sun, in that kibbutz, one, how did your worldview develop, and what were your early ambitions at that point? Where did you see yourself going in the world?
At that early age, I'm talking to you about 5, 6 years old, you basically believe that the world around you is the small environment that you're in. It was hard to understand that there is more to that. And in that world, it was really quite utopic. It was a socialist environment. It's a non-religious. It's people who came from Eastern Europe who believed that the best way of working the land and developing relationship with the land is through agriculture rather than religion.
Mm-hmm.
We were celebrating the 1st of May. It was actually, I think, one of the biggest days in the kibbutz, the Red Flag Day. And hard work was a value at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And in a weird way, because of the geographic position, and I knew, we used to go to the beach in Gaza. We used to go to the market in Gaza. We used to have people from Gaza working and living with us most of my childhood. That was normal way of living. We knew that this is neighbors. You don't know to what degree there is a friction there, but that was normal day-to-day child life in a kibbutz. And in a weird way, I think at that age, I already start to. I think it's become a politician. It's politics through action. It's develop relationship and project with your neighbors. It's learning the language of your neighbor. Is learning your different habits and different rituals of your neighbor. And then it's became also. I remember nearly every weekend at some point we were standing on some hill and calling for peace or calling from or some kind of so it was really a community of peacemakers on the closest one to the border, and since very early on that was a mission. That was what we are about. We are going to make a difference because of who we are and because of where we are. And this is in our power. So it was very empowering. And I'm talking to you really 6, 7, 8 years old, to wear the t-shirts and stand in the right place where I felt like I make a difference. It was quality time with my parents, was holding on posters and doing stuff. My mom became an Arabic teacher, even though her parents coming from Poland, because so she studied Arabic in order to teach Arabic. It was very clear that communication is the best way to see the person next to you, your neighbor, understand them, they understand you, and find ways of creating a better future. So something about the agency, the me as an agent, the agent in me and the politician in me started at that age.
Interesting. How aware were you in that time in the 70s and around? I mean, that was obviously post the 73 war and the annexation on Gaza, and were you aware of what was happening with the PLO and the PFLP and what was the political side of things as you grew up and the tensions?
I was aware that my dad came back from the war, and he was eager, no matter what, that I will never have to go to the army, and it will never be my path to go through what he went through. That was his mission. I felt like he was fighting for that. I was only later on, as a teenager, start to understand that there's different tensions, and of course, there's some famous terror attacks, and you realize that you don't live in a bubble, and that start to kind of become a little bit of waking up from the lovely story of Santa and we're living in a bubble. So that kind of came early on. I must tell you, it was a huge moment for me later in my life when I was actually had the chance to be next to Yitzhak Rabin and King Abdallah and President Clinton.
Wow.
When they signed the peace treaty in the desert with Jordan, and I was just next to them as part of my one of the jobs that I did, and it was a real moment that I felt, my dad wouldn't be prouder to. This is the way. This is that there is a way. We're getting out. It will happen.
Well, I was going to ask you about what life-defining experiences and moments were there growing up, and that definitely sounds like one of them. So,
It's one.
I mean, we
Yeah.
could spend many podcasts talking about this, but we've got to focus on what you're doing and the third big question.
Yeah.
But just on that, your trajectory, you're in London at the moment. You started in the kibbutz. Your father didn't want you to go into the army. I know you ended up in marketing and sales, and now you're a psychotherapist, but also now building a really interesting, let's call it a wellness tech organization and product with your wife and partner. So before we get into that, then, so what was that trajectory that took you to sidestep going into the army and led you away from Israel?
So I think, when I joined the army on the first day, it was my
Oh,
first
you
day
did
out of
go.
the
Oh, so
kibbutz.
you went into the army. I thought your father didn't want you to.
It's mandatory,
Ah,
3 years for boys, 2 years for girls, no question, nothing else.
ah,
But because of medical condition, I had a real, I had a very interesting service. I was not in the front line, but I managed to uh, do an interesting investigations. And it was, but it was 3 years of that. And that was basically my first experience out of the kibbutz. The first time I saw people that are not part of my 16 group
mm-hmm.
kind of peers. And I started to open up myself to others and different experiences and notions of how people live differently. And then I realized that I'm the different one. I thought that up till then, this is the normal kind of how people grow up. Um, when I went traveling, and I spent some time away, and I came back, and I went to uni, and I started to work, and like tech life, and ambition takes you, and I found myself in a really nice and interesting positions where things happen quite quickly. To be honest with you, this is like it felt like it's just happened, not planned as much. And I became VP for marketing and sales for MSN, which is
Part of Microsoft.
the part of Microsoft. It's the portal. Um, and at that time, I felt like I'm flying high, but I felt like I'm struggling. I really felt like the politics, something about the intensity of the environment. It was tough on me. I think this is where I started to explore A, what do I need? And B, how how I'm engaging with that. And exactly on that time, uh, my partner Michal, she got an offer from Microsoft to relocate to the UK, and that was my opportunity to leave and retrain when we arrived to London to retrain as a psychotherapist. Uh, because in hindsight, I felt probably that this what I really needed at the time when I was struggling is a good coach and someone that will help me. And I didn't know how to ask for it, and I didn't know how if it even exists. So I became one,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what I offer for others. Originally, we came for a short tour of duty, and life just happened to be, and now we're talking 23 years later.
Interesting that you going back to your description of your name and being pleasant. I mean, funnily enough, around the time you came to or Mikal, yeah,
Michael?
came to the UK to join Microsoft. She was at Microsoft as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was working probably 99, 98, 99, 2000. One of my clients in advertising was Microsoft UK. So I was going out to Reading all the time and sometimes to La Défense in France to see the European team. working on MSN. I launched the first ever ad campaign for MSN. I've got a wonderful story about my creative director threatening to kill me if we didn't sell in the campaign idea. Now, again, a different story for another time. But I do remember, and they're lovely people. And my client at the time, I think it was Matt Whittingham, was the guy from MSN I was dealing with. Lovely, all lovely individuals, but the environment was tough. It was unforgiving, and I wouldn't use the word pleasant. So I can imagine you being in a Microsoft environment with your character and how you see the way you describe yourself as a human, there being some form of tension that I could see could lead to some form of friction.
I think that the main conflict for me was that in order to fit to the business and the culture, I started to actually get further away from myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like the person that I become because I knew it's not real authentic me. And I needed a way out. It's almost like recalling the kite. And this is what I felt like I had to do. It was not a question of if, it's a question of, I don't know if it's a question of a pleasant man in an unpleasant environment, because there's a lot of pleasant people.
Well,
but
yeah.
It's a cutthroat
But
environment.
it's a culture. There's individual personalities, and then there's a corporate culture. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's a difficult one to do, and I'm sure you got better answers as a psychologist. Because I had this vision of how I had to be to succeed in advertising and the behaviors you need to exhibit. And I think as you get older, you start to learn to be the person you really always were destined to be. But maybe that's an age thing. If I could go back in time and go back into advertising, I'd try and be a very different person and behave in different ways. Do you think it was conditioned through the organization and the expectations and what through university and culture that you thought I have to be this way, or do you think it is just a process of growing up and evolving and growing in wisdom that you have to go through those transformations?
I really think it go back to what we touched earlier. I think to figure out systems and to belong, you adopt and own all kind of things. Some of them are easy and genuine, and some of them are not. And I think when you tap into the conditions and you basically try to mold yourself into what you believe the culture of the organization and the environment, and this is how I should be. Some people will thrive in that, and it will be great for them. For me personally, it felt like I'm losing parts of myself. And I think I'm a Gen Z in my nature. I went very quickly into my uniqueness, my trauma is my uniqueness and my story. And I need to find a way to make use of that rather than go away from that. So changing from corporate life into being a psychotherapist and working with people actually allows me to use that, the concept that we call, the wounded healer.
Yeah. Interesting. Right. Well, that healer point allows us to pivot to the third question. What are you working to achieve before you shuffle off this mortal coil?
I think that, if we're looking at the politics, the 6 years old politician is still burning in me. I'm still, now I'm looking at life through the prism of wellness and well-being, and how much our potential is much, much bigger than what we tapping into if we are actually following systems, whether it's the food we eat, the choices we make, the advertising and the way we consume, whether it's how we are in the world. So I always try to feel like it's on me to use as much awareness and language and to help either my clients or our clients, and we will touch on vis-a-vis and what we're doing with technology, but to throw my stone into the pond and see how much the ripple, where it goes and how much it can do to help people achieve a much better quality of life. I honestly believe, and I see it, that so many of us investing in our own trauma in an unconscious way. And if I can help people going through my own experience, not because I know better, not because I am clever, no, because it was my experience. Instead of running away from it, actually being making friend with your vulnerability, and work from there, then we can tap into a huge amount of potential. And this is maybe on a more mental health level, or but also on a physical level. I think that there is so much more that we can achieve if we take ownership and we understand who we are and how we are functioning in the world, rather than following systems, whether it's the NHS here or even if it's a private system. How much you own and knows yourself, as if you are your best doctor, and what you would say and how you would advise yourself in order to be in the best condition, so you are not falling into traps that might be on the way. So I feel that this is the politician. I'm still trying in different ways to engage as many people as possible with this process. It used to be a small little tribe. It's growing. I must say, we're doing it now for 17 years. It's very different now to what it was before. And I think now we can go on a taxi and the taxi driver will talk to you about spirulina, and everybody knows the world of why it's important, because I think the pandemic exposed the shortcoming of the system, the health system. So we're in a different place now, but I'm still trying in so many different ways to help. Technology is a great vehicle to achieve that.
You use the term their vulnerability and people sort of befriending their vulnerability. In the mental health space, I mean, what you've been doing, I mean, there's I think it's certainly over the last 10, 15 years, it's moved from being something that's taboo into the mainstream, and people almost celebrating their and being open about their mental health struggles. What do you mean by that? Friending your vulnerability, is this something a pattern you see in people that are dealing and having challenges, that there's always some
The way
vulnerability
I
that's at
like
the
to see
heart
it
of
is,
the struggle?
imagine if you're a child and you put your finger in a fire, and you burn your finger, and you have that cellular memory of what will happen every time you see fire. Then you condition yourself to run away from fire. Every time you see it, you will run. Doesn't matter where you end up, as long as you're safe and you are not burn your finger, you you're good. What you don't know is that it's not where you're supposed to go. Yeah. The condition is to be safe. It's not to end up where you really feel like, this is where I want to end up. This is my place. This is my direction. So what is the point where we're starting to turn around, look at the fire and say, okay, now it's a safe place. Let's explore that space. And maybe it's yellow, maybe it's red, maybe it's nice, maybe it's warm. And maybe you can find a new relationship with the fire, that it's not just fire, run. Fantastic, you saved yourself. And that gives you more options. That gives you more quality of life. Instead of a knee-jerk one-way system, it's basically become almost like a roundabout full of options, and you can choose. And once you have choice, you have quality of life.
Okay, so having helped people and helped them sort of see a different perspective, what led you to opening up to the physical health side and to start to, let's say, not pivot, but to expand your role as the politician to try and change the world for the better?
So the truth of the matter is that I trained as a body-centered psychotherapy. So I study both the 80% conscious mind and the 92% physical body, and how they work together.
Wait a minute, I've not heard that
Yep.
term before. So explain.
So it's part of a humanistic kind of angle, but the link between the physical sensation and the mind. A lot of that, it's William Reich work. As part of that is Gerda Boysen. When she started to research the relationship between, she was a Norwegian physician, and she looked at the relationship between exams in teenagers in school and diarrhea.
Ha!
And then you realize, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then you start to realize, okay, how emotions affect physicality. And I think when
Mm,
we live in a world where the Western medicine is a symptom-based medicine, it's what
mm,
float on the ocean. This is what comes on the ocean. What we train to do is to look at the undercurrent. Yeah, what lead to the
mm,
what is the environment that really create those tension points, inflammation points, whatever you want to call them, that lead to physical symptoms. So if we
mhm,
change the undercurrents, the symptomatic part of that will change anyway. So we work on that the other way around. And I think what we're doing with technology and what we're doing at Vis right now is very much on the more exactly on that level.
mm. Okay. Well, you've just perfect point to explain what Vis-a-vis
Right.
is.
So this is something that I'm really, really excited about and proud of. And we worked for a long time to get the technology to be on a level that now we can basically offer it to the public. So the first one we have is here in London. Uh, and the idea is that through a sequence of chambers and technologies, we can engage people with the best properties of nature in order to basically balance those undercurrents that I was just talking about. So we're looking at things like inflammation, immunization, hormonal balancing, all kind of things that we can almost biohack into your system and help your body to enhance and optimize itself, regardless of how much you want to control it in your brain or not. So it's non-invasive. It's not invasive. It's almost like a really a nice experience. Uh, and I think the beauty of that is that we condense something like 7 hours of therapy or treatments into 30 minutes process. We will bring the best properties of nature into the center of town, and people can engage with that and really improve all aspects of well-being, or
Mhm.
so many aspects of their well-being. Depends on their goals, depends on where they are and how they want to interact with the technology and our experts advice.
So give an example. If I turn up at Vis-a-vis in central London and make an appointment, what talk me through the steps?
So the first step would be to fill in a medical form and then to do a 4D scan. And in the scan, we would look at different markers. We're not looking at health conditions. We would look at wellness or well-being conditions. And then we look at how we can improve them with the circuit. So the Vis-a-vis is a circuit that works in
Mhm.
relation to the data that we just now realized about you and the scan found. And creating an avatar, the avatar give us the exact markers that we are now want to start to improve. And
Mhm.
based on that, you will get the protocol that is probably right for you, personalized for you, with the timing and the sequence of how to go through the chambers. And then you would go to simplify it, we call it breathe, freeze, and squeeze. Um, and each
Okay.
one of them has its own magic element, if you like, but they all work in relation to each other.
So as a layman, I assume that breathing is breath work. I assume that freeze is cryotherapy, and I assume that the other last one
Squeeze.
is compression.
Yeah.
Squeeze is compression.
So
Okay. Right. So my first question is: I come in for the scan. You do the wellness scan, and what markers are you looking for in me? What would you be logging, and what would give you a signal, let's say, that there's an issue that I'm dealing with that would then tell you what that undercurrent is? What would give me an example of something you might
The simple
uncover?
and the most common and the easiest one would be inflammation.
Where?
So your body, the amount of inflammation in your body is something that we are looking at, and we're looking at how we can improve and reduce those markers. So if we found that there is a lot of, and well, we all have inflammation, but it depends how much and how severe that is. The reason
And you can't see
no, but
inflammation.
we can see through the scan different elements that tell us exactly how much inflammation is going on. You can't see inflammation in the naked eye, but there are different elements that will tell us.
Wow.
Yeah. And then
So someone could be like slim and they could have let's say a 15% body fat ratio and a decent BMI, but still have
correct,
inflammation.
correct. It's not
Wow.
necessarily to do with your body shape or anything like that. It can be stress levels. It can be all kind of things that we can look at. So, and then you go into the breathe, for example. This is about negative ionization. So when we are in an urban environment, all you breathe would be positive ionization. When you breathe too much of the positive ionization, the cells start to break, what we call free radicals. And that lead to inflammation. Inflammation is the mother and father of all illnesses. So if we're looking we're looking at the undercurrent, what we are looking to do is to balance that. How you would get negative ionization, you would need to go into next to a waterfall, somewhere in nature, in the Amazonas, maybe Costa Rica. You would need to go on the top of a mountain, maybe somewhere in the highlands. Yeah, or maybe on a beach.
Here
Or
in
maybe
California.
somewhere in California, right? Here in London, we don't really have much of that. I'm sure that people in New York or will struggle to find that as well. So what we have is a 15 million negative ionization per cubic second. It's like someone hanging you from an helicopter next to the Niagara Falls. So in the
wow. How do you create that?
and that's the pattern. So in the 8 minutes that you're in the chamber and you just breathe that, it's nothing to do with what you want or what you don't want. We actually exposing you to negative ionization. Your body is now find its own equilibrium. On the same time, we actually give you some infrared therapy and green light and blue light and aromatherapy. So we look at reducing cortisol level as well. That's just the first one. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. How do you? What's the technology to deliver that? Where do you find that
So
technology?
all I can say about that is that we worked hard to encourage scientists and engineers in Germany, and this is how it came about. So we came up with a problem; they came up with a solution.
So this is a proprietary system?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And would you say that is your core IP? This ionization?
No. This is just this is the first. You will be your first chamber, if you like, what we call the breathe. Where I think when you normally after that you will go to the freeze, which is a whole body cryotherapy,
Okay.
and that help with other elements as well as and it is probably the most impactful for people. So
With inflammation.
So with inflammation as well, yeah. Because I think when so
So what does-
cryotherapy, if you want to imagine that, imagine ice age, imagine you fell into a hole. And first thing when you fall into an ice hole, it's like shit. Excuse my French. It's like cold shock. Yeah, the first 20 seconds, it's cold shock. It's where your brain release RBM3, which is the protein that slow aging. And it's really what we need to beat dementia or Alzheimer or anything like that. So it's a great way of achieving that. And this is the cold shock. It's the first 20 seconds. This next thing that will happen, how do I get out of the situation? Right? So I don't need any pain. So pain go away. The next thing I need is clarity. I really need a plan. How do I get out of here? And then the happy hormones start to kick in. I can do this. And when you get to the time that you designated, and each one get a specific timing in the cryotherapy, in the cryo chamber, then when you get out, you feel like I can now do everything. I can really push a mountain. I'm a superhuman. I found something in me that broke. I just broke the glass ceiling of myself, of my limiting belief and what I can really achieve. So there is the happy hormones and the short-term and long-term release of hormones really give you that sensation, and it's super effective for all kind of things, from level of energy to level of clarity to reducing pain to reduce inflammation and increase immunization.
What was the second one? The first one was the RBM3, the slowing, the protein release. The second one was you wanting to escape and to find to get out of it. What was that called?
No, this is just my illustration of the situation. So when you are in that situation and after this cold shock, you come to the realization that what you really need to get out of the situation is clarity and no pain. Yeah, so pain will reduce, and sharpness will kick in immediately.
You've given me number 1 and 2, which is the ionization, the cryo, and then the breathe and the freeze. Now you've got the squeeze. What does the squeeze do?
The squeeze is the latest technology that we joined into the circuit. It's a NASA technology. It's really how you train astronauts before they go to space. So it's all about pressure, positive and negative pressure. It's like a tube. Your body goes into a tube, and we're actually generating positive and negative pressure. And that is really strong enough to increase flow in your system. So blood flow, water retention, getting rid of toxins, everything you need on that level. I think you see some of that in those elements in elite sports when people use after races or competitions or sporting events, recovery system. This is like the next level of that. So it's something you would see and we're very excited to bring those capabilities into a wider market, and not just for elite sports. It's something you can find in Roland Garros, something you can find in Bayern Munich. We actually bring it into a more for every cyclist, every runner, everyone who do yoga, everyone who knows their body and they want to improve and the results, but also reduce their recovery time. But this is one element. We have 24 programs on the machine, and you can, I think it really helps in so many levels with mobility, with figures. We call it reshape because it helps you to retain water, and people will feel much better about their body. So there is so many different ways. And I think what we found and what we do with the freeze, breathe, and squeeze is that we play with them differently in different times, in different ways. Depends on how you come, what we want to achieve, and what the plan is.
On the freeze, tomorrow in San Francisco, I'm interviewing a woman called Amy Gerbser, and she's a swimmer. She's 55 years old, and she swims in the ocean, and she's got the record. No one else has ever done it, swimming from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Farallon Islands. Now, anyone that knows the Pacific, the Farallon Islands are 30 miles off the shore of San Francisco, and it's the main breeding ground for great white sharks. And she swam in May in the freezing cold wet water.
Right.
Now, when I had the first chat with her, and I'll find out more about it tomorrow, she describes getting into the water, even though she does it every day, said she basically curses 50 times before she adjusts. So I assume what she's getting is essentially a natural cryotherapy effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, I'm, as I say, we bring the best properties of nature into the center of town. If you can go to Costa Rica and be by the waterfall, get your negative ionization, then you can go to Iceland and jump into the cold, get that, sensation. And then you can find yourself into, you can't really get, maybe to the moon. Then that would be fantastic. But we're actually condensing 7 hours of therapy into 30-minute process and the best properties of nature in the center of town. And this is how we play that. So it's not, I think what we do is dry cryo. So you put your music on and you choose your music and you get in to dance for, your 4+ minutes, which is different than wet, cold. You can't get hypothermia in the cryo chamber. It's impossible. So it's almost like the most comfortable way to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, no, I did it in Austin. There was a place across the road from me called Restore. Unfortunately, there isn't one here where I'm living. But we used to go in there and do a 60-minute sauna and then go into 3 minutes in the cryotherapy chamber, which was a bit of a shock to the system. But yeah, you're right. I mean, at first you're just like,
yeah. In one of the national parks in America, it is actually in Yellowstone. There is a river, and you can go into that river. And one side of the river is cold, and the other side is hot. And you can swing your body from side to side, and you will get the effect of the hot and the cold in the river. That was the first time I experienced that, and that was mind-boggling experience.
Oh, I got to try that. Yeah.
I don't remember the name of the creek or the river, but it's really it's in Yellowstone.
Okay. Right. Appointment. Yeah. Well, next time I'm in London, I am going to be making an appointment to come in and get my my scan. I definitely want to do this.
So you invited to try the circuit, and it's something that creating something new. We are pioneering here, so we, we always find ourselves in the forefront of things, and now we need to educate again. We need to talk about it in a way that we needed to do 17 years ago about well-being and about little things that people use to now incorporate into their daily life because it's a common knowledge. So it's nice.
I mean, there's so much written about mental well-being. So there are all these podcasts, there are these books, people like Peter Attia, Dr. Paul Saladino, talking about everything from what you eat and different ways of health, what you should be doing about heat therapy, cold therapy. The latest sort of trend, certainly in Austin, was cold therapy with getting in the plunge pool and the ice baths. And one of my recent guests, Caroline Arditi, was an advocate for that and trained under the famous Iceman Wim Hof. And everyone has these little things that I think are hacks, but it seems to be the sort of the trend of the day. What you seem to be doing is creating a much more of an informed, holistic solution to it. What would your advice be to people that are like me? I've got my Whoop band, I've got my Apple Watch, I have my withing scales. They do everything that they can, but maybe they haven't got that real insight into what's really the underlying issue. If they can't come to V2V, what can they do? Because you've got the one clinic, and not everyone can come to London to do that scan.
So we launched 6 months ago, and our plan is to get to America very soon and to as many places as we can through system of licensing and just get other people to engage with us so we can get the systems in different places. But you're right. I think technology nothing here is new. Yeah. Cold stuff is what my grandmother used to tell me every time that I got a bump or, I fell off my bike to put ice pack. So it's not new. It's just the way we apply that and how things are getting into the notion. I think we are trying to use, not to create something new, but actually to take something that you can achieve only in a very particular way and increase the way we can interact. I think that what happened with the Apple Watch, with all the technology around, with the rings and all is that we know how to measure a lot. And I think measurement is only the first step. It tells us what is going on. You know how to sleep.
Yeah.
Are you sleeping better? It tells us how many steps we did, so it encourages us so we can do that and we can move better. But I think that the point that I'm trying to always see is not necessarily how much we know. I think we all became obsessed with knowledge, and I think knowledge can be a congestion kind of thing in our brain. It's more about the 80-20. It's about adopting good habits, and good habits goods for you, that your body feels like, yes, I like it, I enjoy it, I feel like it gives me what I need. So I think it's more about the application of what we can measure, and it's more about with the interaction. Do I get more energy? Do I sleep better? Actually, in sleep better, it's not how many hours I sleep. Do I get more rest out of my sleep? And all those, this is what we try to, we have so many years and so many hacks and so much knowledge of working with thousands of people over the years. We try to not put it into a pill and give that pill to everybody, because we all different, and you know your body better than anyone else, and you're different than anyone else. No two people are the same. And the personalization of that is not a trend. It's what is good for me. If cow milk is good for you, then great. But if it's not agreeing with you and you know that and you try the alternative, then go for it. It doesn't mean that oat milk is better, by the way. I'm not saying that. So we're not necessarily going and saying this is the way. I'm saying, can we explore that and see what works, what gives you that extra energy that you need, a better sleep at night, something that you can tweak and change. And you know that if you first thing in the morning wake up and you squeeze lemon into lukewarm water and you drink that, your pH level will be much better. And that is good for you before you take your coffee, because then your pH level would be in a completely different scale. Little things we can all do, and they're so simple. And they're not hacks. They're just little awareness elements into our lifestyle.
Okay. So you've been going for what, 6 months?
Yeah.
What have you observed in terms of the transformations and the clients that you've had come in and the impact it's had on them?
Yeah. Now you get me, because I'm the excited one, right? So this is where coming to this, not from necessarily from a business point of view. I'm coming because it's a purpose, and the purpose is to really see the impact on people. And that really gets me when I see people coming out after one session and say the pain is gone. And I'm like, oh, I'm dancing because they are, or a mother that bring a child 17 years old that even came out of his room for 4 months. And then, he comes in, he come out, and after 3 sessions, he's ready to rock and roll and get out. And he wants to he's super engaged. And I'm like, yeah, it's like you don't need to take antidepressants, and you don't need to feel like you isolated in your own room, because there is a way of doing it, which is completely natural. It's your own resources that we actually embrace. So, it's you. It's not, you didn't delegate it into any medication. You find it in yourself. When I see athletes that tell me they did a new personal best, that excites me. When we see people that feel like after really 2 sessions, the water retention in their body is changing and the figure changed and they feel much better about their body, that excites me. When I see people that we can see that they reduce their inflammation, and of course, it's not something you would see in a naked eye, but we know that by doing that, they reduce the inflammation. And by doing so, they actually reduce the chance for illnesses or for their probability to be vulnerable for anything that is going on. It excites me. Not necessarily I don't know if it will excite them as much as it excites me, but I know that we actually have a biohacking system that is so effective and so exciting. And so it's a little bit like in so many angles. And I think sometimes it really depends on who you are, what you want to achieve, what is your concerns. And it can be about optimizing your health. It doesn't mean that it's about, I'm not sleeping well or I feel depressed. Yeah, everyone is different, and everyone, wherever they come with, to see that ability to leverage and to engage, it's really, really exciting. And I think what we see is that it is super effective, and it leaves people with a feeling that they don't really understand necessarily, wow, what just happened? I didn't knew this is even possible to feel like that. And no one know what that, we call it crave the feeling as a tagline, because it's this intangible thing that you can sense in your body when you're coming out of it.
Where does it leave you? Let's just play this out. And if you were to see this, and you are within that using that term, functional health, as a functional health, let's say, provider, a solution provider that's trying to transform the way that Western medicine or Western therapy is focused. If this was to scale over 10 years, where does it leave sectors like therapy, mental therapy, psychotherapists? Because if this is such a panacea, an all-encompassing solution for people, from kids in their bedrooms to athletes to people with pain, all because of three simple things, the breathing, the freezing, and the squeezing. They must work in different ways on different people. It can't just be a one size fits all. So where does it leave us 10 years from now? I mean, if it is that wonderful, would we see a diminishing of mental health disorders? Would we see a diminishing in obesity? Would we see the decimation of um, the pharmaceutical industry's grip on health or uh, wellness, believing that the solution to obesity is Ozempic and these GLP-3 drugs? Are you a threat to let's say, the people that currently have a grip on the wellness or the health, or it's anything but wellness and health, but people that have a grip on the health of the nation, whether it be in the UK or the US? Because this must be a threat to them.
So, I wish that's, I wish it would be as big to be a threat, because we're talking about systems that are there for many, many, many years. And this is what they can provide, and they can provide the illness as well as the wellness. And I wish I would be a threat to them. That would be a great position to be in. We're just starting with something, and I think it's in the fringe of all that. I think we're looking at longevity, and we're looking at prevention. We're basically working with awareness. Awareness is the other side of denial. And unfortunately, it is much easier to come, doctor, I have this, doctor, I have that. And you wait for a symptom to basically knock on the door, and then this is your concern. And then you want either a medication or an operation to take it away, and there's a system for that. And I'm not arguing that it's a good system for that, because this is where the symptoms are already presenting themselves. We are looking at awareness. We're looking at people that have the awareness, that will be interested to do whatever they can to prevent, because they take ownership over their body, and they are not expecting anyone to figure it out for them later. That is a process. It's a process that will take time. I always say for everyone that have awareness, there are probably 100 people that sit in a bar somewhere and drinking it off. And I wish that the Russia would be different. I really wish. I think systematically it's easier to look at that from symptomatic the other way around than to look at the undercurrent and use awareness and shifting lifestyle in the way that we encourage people to do. But of course, you see slowly that different apps and technologies and Gen Z now that are really know how to look after themselves because they understand, they saw their parents work so hard to achieve wealth, but on the same time lost the currency of time and health. And now you have a new generation that is so much interested in the currency of health and time, and they're less interested in wealth because they grew up into it in some way or another. That's not going to be their main concern. So there is a new way of engaging with that, and it excites me because I think it is much more interesting. Yeah, it is far more interesting and far more exciting for me to look at the terrain rather than on the symptom. In that sense, everybody is unique, and we have to appreciate that, and we have to everything that we do is about looking at you as who you are, and we cannot assume a thing about you because you are, fit, age, or cluster, or anything like that. So everything is bespoke, everything is personal, and I think it's not easy for systems, big systems, to personalize health to that level. And it will take a long time before I would be able to say that I'm a threat to a system. I think it is way embedded into how we consume sugar, how we eat, how we train, how we move, how we know where to go to the doctor and what. So it's an utopia that I would love to be in that position.
Okay, well, when you decide to open up in San Francisco, give me a call.
If you know a local partner, I would be tomorrow morning willing to jump on a flight and meet them, work with them to do that in San Francisco.
All right. Okay. We'll have to have a follow up on that one because I think I need it. Yeah, just a question on the technology. I mean, I understand that you're early days, and where does AI play a part in what you do? I mean, everyone's talking about AI today.
Yeah. So AI play a huge part. Our app is something that is always developing. What we have now is version 1, but we're looking at one that will be much more incorporate with your wearables. And then it will basically give you much more knowledge and suggestions. We basically take our 22 years of knowledge from our brain into training the system so we can actually fit that into your daily lifestyle as a suggestion, and also how to use the circuit when it's needed. So if we know that you come off a flight, we know how to suggest probably it's a good idea now to go and do a circuit. If we know that you just had a flu or you have immunity is low, we can play with that, but we can also say it's probably a good time for you to go to sleep now because we feel like you. So there is different ways of using AI as your wellness coach that is actively live on your watch or on your phone through the app. And this is how the moment we have in each of the locations, we have well-being, we have a longevity expert, but we want this longevity expert to really live in your app, live in your phone or your watch and interact with you and gather enough from exactly the knowledge the data that you got from your wearables, but take that to another level in terms of how we interact. And this is what we are working on.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that would be fascinating. I would certainly love one. I'm supposed to be doing Sober October at the moment. I'd say it's sort of half and half, but I would certainly love to be Like I looked at my sleep last night, I had a glass of wine at dinner, and I could see the difference in my Whoop band and my sleep quality in terms of my deep sleep versus what it was the night before.
I would say if you would do it 12 months a year, 80-20, you will be fine. We want you to enjoy life and to be happy and engage and to be social and to do things that really matter. And wine sometimes is a good, it's like the old fire. Yeah. It brings people together. Great. Fantastic. But you know your body and you know that you react in that way and it's affect your sleep. And then, then you can maintain the 80-20 rule in a better way.
Yeah, it's very funny actually. I have noticed just if I have a drink at 6 o'clock at night and I do nothing after 8 o'clock and I go to bed at midnight, my sleep quality is great. But if I have a drink at 8 o'clock and I go to bed at 11 o'clock,
Yeah.
it's that time span. It's really interesting. Anyway,
we normally say that the best time to go to sleep is 4 hours after your last meal, because that means that your system is still working. Even though you go to sleep, you are working. So you're not resting.
So how do you get your message out? Obviously people that hear this will help, but I mean, generally, I mean, you've got one location, you can fill it up 24/7 if you could. You're still got a world of people dealing with issues to help. What do you do to educate people beyond just filling up your bookings and to make them realize that there's a better way to think about their health, and that these insights you've got are fundamental? You know, I don't think a lot of people understand ionization. As you said there, standing under a waterfall versus being in a city. You know, I moved from New York to Austin. I'm sure New York, being in the center of Brooklyn and in the center of Manhattan all the time, 24/7, my ionization levels must have been really positively skewed. But you don't think about climbing up a mountain and how that balances you. So even without coming to your clinic, how do you start to educate people about these simple insights that could actually help them?
Yeah, I think this conversation helps. I'm trying to get to as many people as I can. I'm trying to do some talks. I'm trying to work with clients. And I also say that the best way is when a client come out of an experience and they can talk to their family or talk to someone else, because this is how it works. Everyone who experienced that bring the other one. I agree with you. We're talking about one location in central London, and we have really a big plan to get to as many places as we can, right partnerships and the right engagement. But it's not just about engaging with what we are doing. I think it starts with awareness. It starts with the understanding that you are your best doctor. You know your body more than anyone else. You don't need to wait for a symptom to come. What is it that I can do today, physically, mentally, spiritually? And that maybe it comes to how you are in the world, how you interact, how you drive, how you collect your your dog poo or whatever that is that you are in the world, how you do disagreement, how you interact with people, don't like where you come from, or your politics is not whatever. I really like to put myself in what I call the journalist position rather than politician, because I'm not trying to tell you what is right. I'm curious. And curiosity is the starting point of all this. When you ask me questions, you open yourself up and you give me the chance to say my piece, and I'm as interested in what you have to say. So I think that the best answer for your question is reflection, understanding that if you put something in today, you will get it back later. So if you walk and if you improve your mobility, it will help you in later age. If you start to eat well and you reduce your white sugar, white wheat, just for example, or alcohol, you will start to feel better. Your skin would look better. Your energy will be better. You will sleep better. Your libido will be better. You would start to understand that actually something is good for you. And if it's good for you, why not nourishing it? And it's basically down to choices. So we can only try to equip, and I don't want to call it educate, because I feel like we're empowering people to know that it's actually our choices. If you go into the supermarket, where you choose to take your food, how, and what you eat is who you are, and that is your fuel that will get you. And how much of that is comfort? Do you pay attention to that? So a lot of that is how psychology and mental health play into this. Uh, Carbohydrates and sugar are very good to suppress emotions. Uh, and I'm not arguing with the fact that it's effective, and this is how we learn to do that. Sugar comes as celebration. We know that this is, if I want to go to a happy place, I eat something sugary, and let it give me birthdays and give me all the association. So I can't sit here and say, okay, I have a solution for everybody, or this is the solution. I think it starts with your awareness. And if you want to engage, I think we're offering you something fantastic and revolutionary and pioneering in terms of the technology of that, but it's not standalone. It's actually part of your lifestyle, because you want to engage with your own assets and your ability to get the most for yourself. If we call it longevity, it's one way, but I'm saying it's about living the best that you can live for as long as you can. It's quality of life.
Yeah. Health span versus lifespan.
Yep.
Okay. What's your vision for 10 years from now? Where do you think the holistic health will be in 10 years?
I like to see personalized health that come with my input and potentially systems, and then doctors. When I say systems, technology layer, and then doctors layer, if things become, but I think it's something that need to be looked at completely differently. I like functional medicine as a holistic way of seeing you for who you are, understanding that your story, your biography is actually becoming your biology. And because your story is unique, your biology is unique, and we can't cluster you and say, this is what you're suffering from. It helps when it comes to medication, but it doesn't help when it comes to help you to empower you and how to avoid certain situations where, it's avoidable. So I would like to see a far, far, far greater move towards personalized health and not systematic health, which
Great answer.
technology is the bridge for that.
Okay. Can we move to some personal questions?
Please shoot.
All right. Well, what or who inspires you to keep getting up every day, keep changing the world for the better?
My partner, Michal, she's, a force of nature. She's we're doing the business together. Vis-a-vis, her, very much her brain child. Even though it's our brainchild, but she's the force behind it. And I think she abundant of energy and passion and excitement. And when I see that kind of vibrating through to clients, to everyone she's talking about, it's infectious. And it's fantastically impactful. I have lots of ideas, but I'm not necessarily the great person to get them to life. She's probably a dream maker.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hopefully at some point interviewing Mikhail.
Yeah.
We're all human. We all have to deal with our fears, our uncertainty, our self-doubt. How do you deal with it?
I think as a mental health, or emotional intelligence professional, what I learned over the years is to see everything that comes, every emotion as a cloud. It's just different cloud. And I don't want to value cloud as a good cloud or a bad cloud, one that I want to go or one that I want to encourage. So we're not supposed to go through just happy feelings, emotions all the time. There's a reason why we have the a different quality of clouds that come into our systems. And negative feelings can easily start to tap into fear, anxiety, and all kind of normal things that we need to do. But if we don't give it negative value, we just see it for what it is, we frame it, we understand it, and we let it pass rather than hold on to it, because it's the fear that it will stay that makes it so difficult. But we need to allow just to breathe it through and see it for what it is, and understand that some days are better than others for everybody. We all humans, as you said, everybody goes through that. And it's only one slice in the pie. It's not the pie itself.
Good answer. I started this podcast as an experiment in serendipity by seeing who I could meet and engage with through asking the question, who do I interview next? We'll come to that. But where's serendipity played a part in your journey in this most significant?
You know what? I met Michal, and I think from the very first meeting, we knew that we meant to be together, and this is family. We bought a house in the countryside, and it was all about the family. And the next thing we experienced is that we couldn't conceive. We couldn't get kids, couldn't get pregnant. And then that was in the highest of Microsoft days. And we were going through IVF, and through IVF, we start to engage with alternative medicine in all kind of ways. And that started to open my eyes into the world that now we live in. We ended up in London. We ended up adopting our child from Russia, but from London. Everything became something that I could never, ever tell you, this is the script. It's part of the flow, and go with looking into the unknown and into the future as a big blue ocean full of opportunities and amazing, beautiful corals, rather than something that is black and bleak and I need to project all my fears into. So I think serendipity is probably my middle name.
I like that. Okay. What book would you recommend that people read?
So in the context of our conversation, I would say Cured by Dr. Jeff Rediger.
Okay.
I think sometimes it really kind of opened your eyes about medicine and about more than what medicine is and what is medicine. That's the book.
Then the show notes. Other than V2V, which is more than a hack, but are there any simple hacks if people can't get to V2V that you've discovered that they should be aware of and be implementing to help them live more balanced lives?
It's like, because we live in this world, the word hack sounds to me like, what is the magic thing that you can do? There's so many things that you can shortcuts into something else. But I think that the main thing is ownership. Own it. No one knows you better than you, and no one will you better than you. So start with that. The second thing is squeeze half a lemon into your lukewarm water first thing when you wake up in the morning.
Really? Why?
That's the first thing that will balance your pH level before you put anything else into your system. So when you wake up, it's simple and easy. And that's the first thing that need to go into your system. We're doing it now about 20 years as a routine. It doesn't change where we are. Easy, just lemon, water. And your body will say thank you. We're looking at the blue zones, and I always look at the blue zones, and we try to learn from the blue zones. This is the 7 zones in the world where live, over 100. And it's really about picking up a lemon from your tree outside in Sicily, visit into your, it's simple. It's as simple as that, but it is so effective. And if it become part of your routine, then, your body will say thank you, and you would start to be more aware of how you start the day and then how you continue the day. So I think this is why I like it, because it's the first thing I do when I wake up. And it's the first thing Michalis do when she wake up. And we're doing it now for 20 years without a fail. No matter where we are, it's just easy. You can get lemon everywhere.
I like it. Um, Again, you've given a book. Is there any is there any documentary or show or film that relates to helping people have a better well-being that they should watch?
I think when it comes to entertainment, I think it's what makes you happy. I really think that this business that we call happiness, for the last 22 years that I'm in mental health, what I learned is that we seek happiness. And for me, happiness is the process of getting your needs met. We tend to not really get in touch with our needs as much as we are with our wants. And that means that no matter how much we get what we want, we're not happy. So it brings me back to this first question that you asked me in this podcast about the kibbutz. Yeah? Take as much as you need, give as much as you can, take as much as you need, right? That's what I learned from age 0. And what is a need and how we look after need. Sometimes it's a hug. Sometimes it's a laugh. Sometimes it's a dance. Sometimes it's recognition. And entertainment in that sense, for me, needs to fit needs. So I don't have anything brainy to bombard people with more information. I think it's something that can really tap into your childhood or to your memory, with your cellular memory with your parents, where you felt like connected. And it can be Frank Sinatra, or it can be a Charlie Chaplin, or it can be Mr. Gru. It doesn't matter. If it's really tap in on those emotions, I'm happy with that.
Cool. I always end with the last couple of questions. One is, are you open to the reciprocity of us connecting you with other people from the Impossible Network?
Of course.
Okay. And then the final question is, who do I interview next?
Michal would be the obvious first
Okay.
to nominate. She's she would be my definite nominee.
Fine. Well, let's do that. Now, before we wrap up, and at the beginning, before we came on, we were talking about your personal sort of journey in a bit more detail, and you talked about growing up on the border with Gaza. I believe that you also have a very personal story that relates to more recent events and the horrific events on October 7th, that your mother was one of the people kidnapped. Could you maybe just give a little update on what's happened since then and how she is?
Yeah, as you said, 7th of October was a shocking moment for us as a family, not just as a community or, as human being. And I think you probably gather from the conversation, the people that we are and who, the forefront of all this fight. My mom lived in the kibbutz for 55 years. And on the 7th of October, she was kidnapped from her home, and she was in Hamas captivity for 53 days. Luckily, she's been released, and she is very, very strong person. The old style of strong women that showed no nonsense. And I think she managed, under the circumstances, she's now in the best possible situation we could have. Get her. No one at 75 even think about restart their life from scratch, from zero, but at least she have life to restart. And we are very, very grateful. And I think with all the political and the tension and everything that is going on, we are looking at that through the prism of our own family and her kids and grandchildren, and how much we're looking after her. She's just been now in London to celebrate her 76th birthday, exactly a year after she's supposed to come here to celebrate her 75th. And 4 days before, she'd been kidnapped. So she had her birthday in captivity last time around. It's something that it's only a year in a weird way, and we still feel like this is a nightmare. It can't be real. Nothing about it feels real. all our life were geared towards solution, resolution, and they've been, the community, the kibbutz was attacked. This particular kibbutz where I grew up and where my mom was living particularly hit the hardest because of the geographical position and because of the political view. They got so many people to work in, and they got so much information about them, so they were easy target. And on the day, the army was not there. The IDF didn't came till really late in the evening when they already left. So quarter of the community is gone. There were 400 people in total, and 100 of them are gone. And it's huge trauma that, we all try to do our little angle to help and start to heal from somewhere. At the moment, there's still 29 people from the kibbutz that are being held captive in Gaza. And that is very much the focal point of them as a community. The place is gone. The kibbutz is burned to the ground and it's gone. It will take probably about 3 years to rebuild. And the focus now is on the 29th that are still there. It's still an open wound. It's not something that happened on the 7th of October. For them, for us, the 7th of October is every day since.
So 2 questions. How did your mother survive those 53 days?
So as I said before, she's an Arabic teacher, so she speaks the language. And that was an asset. The other thing that works on her to her favor is that actually she was held by the Islamic Jihad, and they needed the money from the Hamas. So they basically called her a diamond. She realized if they called me a diamond, they probably, the power is on my side. So, she's very strong mind. So she kept mental games and she trained, she kept herself in a good position. So she was not completely in despair. She tried to, a lot of conversation with her captors when she was there.
Was she just alone herself, or were there other people with her?
One more person. With one more person. She was a human shield on the 5th floor of a house. So in a house of a lawyer, a normal Gazan who basically got his house ready for captives, and the top floor, the top room, basically became like a jail. And this is where she was for 53 days.
So for people think that the hostages are in tunnels, they're not necessarily in tunnels.
Well, probably now it's a fair assumption for the 101 that left in Gaza to assume that they are in tunnel. We're talking a year later, and they go from house to house to look for them. But at least on the early stages, they were held on the top floor as a human shield and basically say, this way, the IDF would not bombard them, and they know that they will need to protect. So I think we're lucky in so many different ways, but one of them is that she was held not under the ground.
So how did the Islamic Jihad get hold of her? Were they part of the people that actually sort of stormed the kibbutz, or was she handed over to them?
So thousands of people stormed into the kibbutz. On the 7th of October, it was wave after wave after wave. It was like like the Malakon in Havana. People just came to loot, to take whatever. And one of the things is that, they had bounty. So they got $10,000 for every person that they took. And this is why you see quite a lot of children and elderly people who've been taken later. The people that been taken earlier were men. So when they came, I think they got more than they bargained for. This is my belief, that they got more hostages than they believed that they. So they had to spread them. The first thing they did is spread them, and if the Islamic Jihad were ready to take them and get the money for them, so be it. So this is how she got to them. Before the release, she basically got back to the Hamas, and the Hamas was releasing her to Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, where they were held for the last 2 days before they've been released.
What's your hope for the remaining hostages?
First, they're alive.
Mhm.
That's the first thing. And if they're alive, that they didn't leave the last year in captivity to see more horrors. I think to really see that this moment is an opportunity to stop all this. Nothing about it is good for anyone. No one is enjoying loss of any life. I think the 7th of October proved to be completely futile and irrelevant to the Palestinian cause. It didn't promote their life in any way. And I think it's time for them, for the neighbors, the real neighbors, that captures the peacekeepers and the last people in Israel that are really standing for peace. Even now, we would ask them, a lot of them would still say it's the only way forward. To say enough, it's really so wrong on so many levels. And the simple key for the situation is to release the hostages. The ceasefire will come immediately. And then, it will be at least end for so many suffering in that caught in the middle between all these.
And just finally on the broader conflict, we all know that Israel was very close, and with the Saudis, to signing the Abraham Accords that would have brought an extensive sort of peace between traditionally sort of not warring nations, but nations that were antagonists to Israel, and yet and with the desire also to see a lasting peace and to create a two-state solution. Iran is still the thorn that's preventing that. They're clearly funding Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. What's your sense of where we might be heading? I mean, it's a difficult question to answer, but the sense is that we, hopefully history bends towards justice. Do you think we've got challenging times ahead, or are you hoping that we might be entering a time where there might be some form of peace deal?
I pray and I hope that it will be some peace deal. We were talking in this podcast about technology that do well and do good. My worry is that this time around, there is so much technology that if we have third world war, it can be horrendous to humanity. I believe personally, this is my personal belief, that this is a moment where totalitarian regimes in China, Russia, Iran, saw a real weakness in democracies and the Western world, where we don't really have leaders. And we have politicians. I think that the climate change crisis exposed that. We have politicians that cannot take decisions for 30 years from now because they're not going to be here. They need to be elected in 40. So they are short-sighted, and they are not really the kind of leaders that we used to see. And I think they saw it as an opportunity. And Israel cannot do anything alone. That need to be part of we all need to grow courage and look in the white in the eye, see the problem and fix it together. There is a thirst in the Western world for status quo. And sometimes when there is cancer, it needs to be treated. I think that as you say, Hamas, Houthis, Hezbollah, all they have is motivation. The rest is Iranian money and Iranian ammunition that basically designed to destroy, I don't believe Israel, but I believe liberal values. And we all if we care about our kids in the same way, and we want to protect them and give them better future, and well-being is all about increasing that. So I think we share exactly the same thing. People that want to use that as vulnerability need to know that it's not going to happen. And we need to stand up for that as one bloc, whether it's the Western bloc or the liberal bloc or democracies as a whole. We need to be courageous enough to do that. If it will happen or not and how exactly, I don't know. But I think the next world war is one that we cannot afford because the technology now is very different than what it was last time. Well,
Mhm.
I'm not. My opinion is not more knowledgeable or more clever than anyone else. It's just all my life we were growing up that peace is possible. I don't think that we're talking about the Palestinian thing here. I know that this is what's going on in the streets, but I think it's
Yeah.
completely sideways because not the Hamas on the 7th of October and not the Hezbollah on the 8th of October and not the Houthis are serving the Palestinian cause in any way. It's not going to better life
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form. And I think it's tragedy. They're being used in so many ways, and the politics of that and everything, it's not helping. Every time there is a cycle like this, it seems like it's the extremists just getting more and more and more on both sides. And that's really worries me. I think it's time for us to say, no, we need to find a way to do it. If you talk to people in Israel now, the two-state solution look like, a fairy tale,
I know.
like a distant, naive memory. And I still believe that it's the only way. But for now,
Mhm.
it seems like, and I think that when the mask's gone down, and we know that Iran is now the forefront of this, it's a question that need to be on the desk of the British Prime Minister, the French President, the American President, and anyone in the Western world in terms
Mhm.
how do we want to tackle this because it can escalate beyond the region.
Yeah, it's tragic. I was with a businessman here couple of weeks ago who's a local who's an Iranian, and I went. My parents lived in Iran before the revolution, and I learnt to ski in Iran. And the Iranians are an amazing people, intelligent, sophisticated, and most people they're reasonable, and they're held under the control of this extremist, obsessive, retrogressive regime that is destabilizing the world. And it's crazy that
Yeah,
you would hope that there is hope for the world and for the region. If Iran normalcy can be well, not that it was normal before when the Shah was there, but it's a place of liberal values predominantly run by a bunch of extremists. So there has to be hope. We must remain
yeah. You
hopeful.
started by saying
Um,
that the 7th of October was linked to. It's just a week before that the Saudis were about to sign the Abraham Accord
I
going
know.
in. And I think they managed to derail that. And if we have any hope is that it's not going to happen, that we can do it. The Saudis are standing for good. And we need to support these powers as much as we can because that will change the region to the better.
Yeah. Well, on a positive note, thoughts are with you, your family, the rest of the community, and that you get the hostages back, and that there be some form of peace
Lis-
deal in the region. In terms of what you're doing, I think it's amazing. I look forward to connecting with Mikhail and just seeing the progress that you're making start and hope that you start to see the impact of what you're doing spread not just across London but across the country and across the world.
Yeah. And
Because I think if there's one idea that I've heard in this election cycle in America that makes sense, make America healthy again. That's something that I think needs to happen here. It needs to happen in Britain. It needs to happen in other countries across the world that we've been decimated by the industrial food complex, by bad education, by bad health advice. And for have more people in the world like you that are talking with common sense, using technology, using insight, and combining functional wellness and health with mental and physical well-being together to make people healthier, I think can only be a good thing. So more power to you.
amen. Thank you for that. And I'm open to any one of your listeners who would like to help us to bring that systems into America. It's something that we are really ready and eager to start and do right now. So we're spreading it all over. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for the space. I know it's a little bit, when you look at all the elements in my life, it's a little bit spread and all over, but no matter how you turn it around, I'm standing for good and for love, and for I decided that every hate crime will be answered by love, and we keep on spreading the energy, and hopefully it will make this place a better place.
I'm sure it will. Well,
Yeah.
on that note, thank you very much. Okay, that's all for now, folks. Now here's my ask of you. Please follow this podcast on Apple or Spotify or whatever player you use. Also, please subscribe to our new Random Collisions newsletter. We really are working to build a global community of action takers, action engines of people that really care about the problems that need solving. Thank you very much, and see you next time.